The mansion at No. 2 Victoria Island was unusually quiet that morning. The golden curtains swayed gently as sunlight poured into the wide living room filled with expensive paintings and marble floors. On the couch sat Madame Agnes, elegant in a rich blue lace gown, her silver hair tied neatly under a scarf and a tall glass of juice resting beside her. Her calm face hid the secret she had been keeping for days. Beside her sat her only son Williams, one of Nigeria's most successful young billionaires. Every tabloid knew his name. Every woman in Lagos wanted to marry him, but none of them had ever truly known what it meant to love him beyond his wealth. The sound of a car stopping outside broke the silence. "Is she here?" Williams asked, his voice low but curious. Madame Agnes smiled, eyes twinkling. "Yes, my son, she's the one." Moments later, the door opened, and there stood Amara. Her steps slowed as her eyes widened at the sight before her. The woman she had fed yesterday, the poor, wheelchair-bound beggar in torn Ankara, was now seated in a mansion, dressed like royalty. Amara's lips parted in disbelief. You're not a beggar?" Madame Agnes let out a soft laugh. "No, my dear, I am not. I only wore that disguise to find someone with a kind heart for my son." William stood, his eyes gentle but firm. "And that someone is you." Amara's knees grew weak. Her world spun. How could this be? Just yesterday, she had given food to an old woman in need, and now she stood in front of a billionaire who was about to change her life forever. Then, without warning, Williams went down on one knee. He pulled out a small box. Inside it was a diamond ring that sparkled brighter than her tears. The room froze in time. Amara's hands trembled. "Amara," Williams said softly, "will you be my wife?" Tears filled her eyes. Madame Agnes smiled proudly, watching the woman who had unknowingly passed her greatest test. But before Amara could answer, her phone rang. She looked down at the screen, her expression changing instantly. Her hands shook as she whispered, "No, not now." Williams frowned. "What's wrong?" Her voice cracked. "It's the hospital. My younger sister. She's—" Her words broke into sobs. The ring slipped from William's hand, rolling across the marble floor. And just like that, the fairy tale moment froze in chaos. The heat that afternoon was merciless. Lagos streets buzzed with people, some chasing money, others chasing time. At a corner near a busy restaurant in Lekki, a frail old woman sat in a wheelchair, holding an empty plastic cup. Her wrinkled hands trembled slightly as cars passed. It was Madame Agnes, though no one recognized her. Her face was powdered with dust, her clothes torn, and her once perfectly styled hair now messy and grey. Her heart raced each time someone walked by. She had left her comfort and mansion to find something money could never buy, a good heart for her son. "Spare some change, please," she whispered to a passing couple. They ignored her. Another woman stopped, looked at her with disgust, and hissed, "Go and find your children to feed you," then walked away. Madame Agnes sighed deeply. "Is there no kindness left in this city?" she muttered. Minutes turned into hours. Then she saw them, 3 young women, walking out of the restaurant with takeaway packs in hand. They were laughing loudly, their perfume filling the air. One of them, tall and brown-skinned, stopped when she noticed the old woman. "Chai, see this mamau?" her friend mocked, pointing. Maybe her children abandoned her. The second one laughed. If she had trained her children well, she wouldn't be here begging. But the third girl, Amara, froze. Her eyes softened as she looked at the frail old woman. "You both should stop that," she said firmly. Her friends scoffed. "I beg, Amara, let's go. You always like forming Mother Teresa." Amara ignored them. She walked toward Madame Agnes, knelt beside her, and smiled gently. "I'm so sorry for what my friends said, Ma," she said. "Here, please take this food." Madame Agnes stared at her, speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You're giving me your lunch?" Amara nodded. "Yes, Ma. You need it more than I do." She handed her the jollof rice, chicken, and a bottle of water. Then, tearing a small paper from her bag, she scribbled something down. "This is my phone number," she said softly. "If you ever need help, please find someone to call me." Madame Agnes's lips trembled. "Bless you, my child," she whispered, clutching the note like a treasure. As Amara walked away, her friends kept laughing. But Madame Agnes didn't hear them anymore. She watched Amara until she disappeared into the crowd, her heart swelling with gratitude. "That's her," she whispered to herself. "That's the woman I've been looking for." Later that evening, back in her mansion, Madame Agnes removed the grey wig and wiped the dirt off her face. Her driver and maid gasped when they saw her. "Madam, you went out like that?" one cried. She smiled calmly. "Yes, and I found her." She took the small piece of paper from her pocket and placed it on the table beside her son's framed picture. Williams entered the room moments later, loosening his tie. "Mother, I told you I'll find someone soon. Why do you worry so much?" Madame Agnes looked at him lovingly. "Because, my son, wealth can buy you everything except genuine love. And today I met someone who still knows what kindness means." Williams frowned slightly. "Who?" She smiled. "Her name is Amara." Williams leaned forward. "And who is Amara?" Madame Agnes's lips curved into a mysterious grin. "You'll find out tomorrow." That night, Williams couldn't sleep. The curiosity burned in his mind. Who was this Amara that made his mother sound so certain? And why did he feel, deep inside, that tomorrow might change his life forever? Amara sat frozen in the grand living room, her heartbeat loud enough to drown the hum of the air conditioner. Madame Agnes smiled warmly, watching her confusion unfold like a movie. "My dear, calm down," she said gently. "You did nothing wrong. In fact, you did something right, something most people forgot how to do." Amara blinked fast, still staring at her surroundings, the crystal chandelier, the glass tables, the polished floor that reflected her shocked face. The poor beggar she had fed yesterday was sitting like royalty beside Nigeria's most talked-about billionaire. Williams noticed her shaking hands and stood. "Please, have a seat." She hesitated, clutching her small handbag tightly. I don't understand what's happening." "You will," Madame Agnes said softly. She reached out, taking Amara's trembling hands. "Yesterday, when you knelt by me on that street, you didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything. You only gave." Amara swallowed hard. "Ma, I only did what anyone should have done." Madame Agnes smiled sadly. "My child, not everyone would have done that. I sat there for 6 hours in the heat, in the dust, and hundreds walked past. Some laughed, others insulted me. You were the only one who stopped." Williams studied her face quietly. Her eyes were full of innocence and warmth, nothing like the calculating looks he'd seen on the women who'd tried to date him. He thought to himself, "She's not pretending, she's real." Madame Agnes turned to her son. "Williams, this is Amara, the woman I told you about." Amara's jaw dropped slightly. "You told him about me?" "Yes, dear," Madame Agnes replied. "I have spent years begging my son to marry. I watched women chase his name, his money, his fame, but not his heart. I refused them all. So I prayed and decided to test the world myself." Amara's eyes widened. "You disguised as a beggar?" Madame Agnes nodded. "To find a heart that gives without expecting." Her voice softened. "And that's what I found in you." Amara's lips trembled, a tear escaping before she could hide it. I never imagined something like this." Williams stepped closer, his tone calm but sincere. "Amara, my mother doesn't do anything halfway. If she says you touched her heart, believe me, that's a miracle on its own." Amara let out a nervous laugh through her tears. "Sir, I don't even know what to say." "Say nothing," he said gently. "Just tell me about yourself." She hesitated, then looked down. "There isn't much to tell. My parents died when I was a teenager. I grew up with my aunt in Ajagunle. I work at a small catering shop now. That's how I afford food, and that jollof rice I gave you yesterday, Madame Agnes nodded thoughtfully. "So you've known hunger before?" Amara smiled faintly. "Many times. That's why I can't walk past someone hungry." Williams folded his arms, admiring her courage. "And your friends yesterday, the ones who mocked you for helping?" Her expression dimmed. "They laugh at me all the time. They say I'm too soft, that kindness doesn't pay bills. Maybe they're right, but I just can't change who I am." Madame Agnes looked at Williams and whispered, "You see why I chose her?" He nodded slowly, eyes still on Amara. "I do." Then, after a long silence, Madame Agnes stood up. "Amara, my son will drive you home today. Please, no arguments. I'll have lunch prepared for you first." Amara shook her head quickly. "No, Ma, you've done too much already. I can't." Williams raised a brow. You can't what? Accept lunch from a billionaire's mother you once fed jollof rice. She giggled softly, wiping her eyes. When you say it like that, it sounds funny. That's because it is, he replied with a grin. Come on, relax. A few minutes later, the three of them sat around the glass dining table. The chef served steaming jollof rice, the same meal Amara had given the old woman yesterday. When Madame Agnes took her first spoonful, she chuckled. It tastes better when you're not eating it on the street. Amara laughed shyly. William smiled again, a genuine smile he hadn't worn in months. As they ate, Madame Agnes studied the two of them closely. There was something peaceful about the way Amara spoke, humble, graceful, and unpretentious. After the meal, Madame Agnes turned to her son. You will take her home, right? Yes, mother. As they headed out, William stopped beside his black Mercedes and looked at her. Can I ask you something? She nodded. Yesterday, when those girls mocked you for helping my mother, what made you still do it? Amara paused. Because kindness doesn't lose value even when people mock it. He stared at her, speechless for a moment. Then he said quietly, You're different, Amara. She looked away shyly. I don't know about that. He opened the car door for her. You will. As the car rolled through the quiet streets, Amara looked out the window, her thoughts racing. How could her life change so quickly in one day? How could a simple act of kindness bring her into the world of billionaires? She turned to Williams. Sir, I still can't believe your mother was that old woman. He chuckled. Neither can I. But she's always full of surprises. You should have seen her pretending to cough and cry during her beggar act. Amara laughed, covering her mouth. She deserves an award. Then the laughter faded. She looked serious again. Sir, can I ask something? Of course. If your mother hadn't gone out disguised as a beggar, do you think we would ever have met? Williams thought for a moment. Maybe not. But I believe what's meant to be always finds a way. They shared a quiet smile, one that felt strangely familiar, like they had known each other far longer than a day. When they arrived at her street, Amara thanked him and started to step out. But just then, a woman's voice shouted from a nearby kiosk, sharp and angry. Amara, where have you been? Amara froze. Her neighbor Mama Ruth stormed toward her, holding an envelope. This came for you this morning. It's from the hospital. Amara's smile faded instantly. She tore open the letter, her hands trembling. As her eyes scanned the paper, the color drained from her face. William stepped out of the car, alarmed. Amara, what's wrong? Her lips quivered. It's my sister. She collapsed this morning. They said she needs surgery immediately. The letter slipped from her fingers. Williams caught it, reading quickly, and his heart tightened. Without a word, he looked at her tear-streaked face and said, Get in the car. Where are we going? She asked weakly. To the hospital, he said, starting the engine. Right now. And as the car sped off into the fading Lagos sunset, neither of them knew this night would test their hearts in a way money never could. The hospital waiting room was cold and silent, except for the rhythmic beeping of a machine in the distance. Amara sat on a plastic chair, her face buried in her hands. The tears wouldn't stop coming. Her younger sister, Chioma, only 17, lay unconscious in the emergency ward. The doctor's words still echoed in her head. She needs surgery within 24 hours. Without it, she might not survive. Amara's breath hitched as she looked up at the clock on the wall. 8:43 p. She didn't even know where she would find such money by morning. Williams stood by the window, watching her quietly. His usual calm, confident presence as a billionaire CEO was gone, replaced by a deep concern that went beyond sympathy. He turned toward her. How much did the doctor say? She sniffed, wiping her face. 1.5 million naira. I don't even have 50,000. He nodded slowly. All right. She looked up. All right? He picked up his phone. Yes. I'll pay it. Amara's eyes widened. No, sir, please. You've done too much already. I can't let you. Williams raised a hand. This isn't charity, Amara. It's gratitude. You saved my mother's heart. Let me save your sister's life. She blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. But you don't even know me. He smiled faintly. Maybe not fully, but I know what kind of person you are. Before she could protest again, he stepped out to speak with the hospital accountant. Within minutes, a nurse rushed in with a receipt, confirming payment. Amara covered her mouth, crying softly. God, thank you. When Williams returned, she stood and tried to kneel in gratitude, but he gently stopped her. Please don't, he said. You've knelt enough for one lifetime. Just promise me one thing. What? She whispered. Don't lose that heart of yours. Ever. She nodded through her tears, and for a long moment, they stood in silence, strangers bound by compassion. Hours later, the doctor came out of the operating room, pulling down his mask. She's stable now. The surgery went well. Amara gasped and burst into tears again, this time from joy. She turned to Williams, but he wasn't beside her anymore. Confused, she ran outside and found him sitting alone on a bench near the parking lot, staring at the stars. Sir, she said softly, approaching him. You didn't even wait for me to thank you. He smiled weakly. You already did. Seeing you smile again is enough. For a while, neither spoke. The city noise faded into the distance, replaced by the sound of night insects and the cool breeze. Amara sat beside him. You know, my mother used to say something before she died. What's that? He asked. She said, kindness is the only investment that never fails. I never understood it fully until now. He looked at her, truly seeing her, the courage, the gentleness, the quiet strength. Your mother was a wise woman, he said. Amara smiled faintly. She was. She also used to say that love is not something you look for, it's something that finds you when you're not pretending. Williams froze slightly at those words. They echoed something his late father once said to Madame Agnes. He turned to her. Do you believe in destiny? Amara shrugged softly. Maybe, but I believe in doing good first and letting destiny find its way later. Williams chuckled. You sound like my mother. She laughed quietly, leaning back on the bench. That means she's a wise woman too. She is, he said with a smirk. And she's already planning your future. Amara frowned. My what? He laughed. Nothing. Forget I said that. But deep down, she knew he was hiding something and that it had to do with Madame Agnes. The next morning, Amara went home to freshen up. As she walked through her small street in Ajagunle, everyone stared. Her neighbors whispered, not because of gossip this time, but because of the shiny black car that had dropped her off the night before. Mama Ruth, the same neighbor who had given her the hospital letter, called out, Amara, that man who helped you last night, who is he? Amara smiled shyly. A friend. Mama Ruth raised her brows. That kind of friend that drives a car with tinted glass and pays hospital bills. Amara laughed. Mama Ruth, it's not what you think. But in her heart, she couldn't stop thinking about him either. Later that afternoon, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She picked up. Hello? Amara? She froze. That voice calm, deep, familiar. Williams? Yes, he said. My mother wants to see you. She says it's important. Her stomach fluttered with nervousness. Did I do something wrong? No, he chuckled. Quite the opposite. She said to tell you, she's found what she was looking for. Amara frowned, confused. What does that mean? He smiled on the other end of the line. You'll see when you get here. A car will pick you up by 4. All right, she whispered. I'll be ready. As she ended the call, her heart raced. She didn't know it yet, but this meeting would change everything again. At exactly 4 o'clock, the same black Mercedes stopped in front of her compound. The driver opened the door for her. When she arrived at the mansion, Madame Agnes was waiting in the living room, this time holding a small jewelry box. My dear, she said warmly as Amara entered. Please sit. There's something I want to ask you. Amara sat nervously. Yes, ma? Madame Agnes leaned forward, her eyes serious but kind. If a man had everything, power, wealth, fame, but needed love more than air, would you still see him as human? Amara hesitated, then nodded. Yes, ma. Because no matter how rich someone is, they still need someone to care for them sincerely. Madame Agnes smiled slowly, as if she had been waiting for that answer all her life. She looked toward the doorway. Williams, she called softly. He stepped in, dressed in a crisp white shirt, his expression unreadable. In his hand was a small velvet box, not the same one as before, but another. Madame Agnes stood and placed her hand gently on Amara's shoulder. Then, my dear, she said, I believe you're ready for what comes next. Amara turned, her heart pounding as Williams approached. But before he could open the box, a loud crash came from the hallway. Everyone turned. One of the maids ran in, panicking. "Madam, madam! Someone just entered the compound, a woman claiming she's Mr. Williams' fiancée." Amara froze. William's face went blank. Madam Agnes narrowed her eyes. "What?" she asked coldly. The maid stammered. "She says her name is Vanessa, and she's here to fight for her man." The room went silent. Amara's heart sank. Her chest tightened. Williams shut his eyes and muttered under his breath, "Not again." The heavy glass doors of the mansion swung open, and the sound of high heels echoed through the marble floor like thunder. Vanessa walked in, tall, fair-skinned, dressed in a tight red gown that shimmered under the chandelier. Her eyes were sharp, her lips painted the color of fire. She didn't wait to be announced. "Williams," she called loudly, her voice trembling with fury. "So this is where you've been hiding?" Williams rubbed his forehead, sighing deeply. "Oh no." Amara stood still, too stunned to speak. She turned to Madame Agnes, who sat back on the couch, watching the scene unfold with calm curiosity. "Who are you?" Vanessa snapped at Amara, her eyes flashing. "Another one of his charity projects." Amara blinked, confused. I don't understand what you mean." Vanessa turned to Williams, her voice rising. "You disappeared for 2 days, didn't answer your phone, and now I find you here with her." Williams stepped forward slowly. "Vanessa, please, calm down." "Calm down?" she shouted. "After everything I've done for you? After all the time I wasted pretending to like your mother's boring dinner parties and her ridiculous charity work, for this?" She pointed sharply at Amara. Madame Agnes's calm broke slightly. "Mind your tongue, young lady," she warned. "You're in my house." Vanessa scoffed. "Oh, I know exactly where I am, Madame Agnes, and I know you've always hated me because I don't play your little game of fake humility." Williams's face hardened. "That's enough." "No, it's not," she snapped, her voice shaking now. "You think you can just walk away from me after telling the whole city we were getting engaged?" Amara gasped, her eyes darting between them. "Engaged?" Vanessa turned to her with a mocking laugh. "Oh, he didn't tell you that part, did he?" "Of course not. He's good at playing the nice billionaire act. Poor little innocent you. You probably think he's your angel." Amara's lips parted, but no sound came out. She took a small step back, her heart pounding. Williams clenched his fists. "Vanessa, stop it." "No," she shouted, tears starting to form. "You think you can dump me just because I don't fit your mother's perfect image? You think you can humiliate me like this?" Madame Agnes stood up then, her voice calm but firm like thunder about to strike. "You humiliated yourself, Vanessa, the day you were caught insulting my staff, mocking the foundation children, and calling them street trash." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "You were spying on me." "I was observing you," Madame Agnes corrected sharply. "And what I saw broke my heart. You don't love my son, you love what he owns." The silence that followed was heavy. Even the ticking clock seemed to stop. Vanessa's expression shifted from anger to shame, then back to rage. "You're making a mistake," she said through clenched teeth. "He'll regret this. You'll regret this." Then she turned toward Amara, her words slicing like a blade. "And you, the fake little saint, you'll never survive in his world." Before anyone could respond, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The echo lingered long after she was gone. For a moment, no one spoke. Amara stood frozen, her hands shaking slightly. Williams finally turned to her, his face filled with quiet frustration and regret. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. "So it's true? You were engaged?" He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "It wasn't what you think. Vanessa and I were never officially engaged. It was just public speculation. My mother was the one who pushed me to take a step back when she saw who Vanessa really was." Amara's eyes softened, though confusion still clouded her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll stay," Madame Agnes said gently, stepping closer. "My dear, don't let one storm chase you away from sunshine. People will always show who they are when truth enters the room." Amara turned to her. "Ma, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm not used to this kind of world." Madame Agnes smiled kindly. "Then let me help you understand it." She held Amara's hand and led her to the couch again. Williams followed quietly, still lost in thought. "My dear," Madame Agnes began softly. This house has seen many people walk in and out, some pretending to love, some pretending to serve. But you came with nothing and still gave something. That's rare. Amara's eyes glistened. Ma, I only did what my heart told me to do. And that, Madame Agnes said, is why I trust you with my son's heart. Amara looked down, speechless. William's gaze softened. He moved closer, his voice gentle. I don't know how to explain it, Amara. I've met hundreds of people, but there's something about you that feels peaceful, real. Amara smiled faintly. I'm just me. Exactly, he said. And that's what makes you different. That evening, Madame Agnes invited Amara to stay for dinner. The atmosphere was warm and light again. They laughed, shared stories, and for the first time, Amara saw Williams not as a billionaire, but as a man who missed normal life. At one point, as Williams refilled her glass, he asked quietly, Do you believe people can fall in love because of destiny? She looked up, meeting his eyes. Maybe not destiny, but purpose. What's the difference? She smiled. Destiny is what happens to you. Purpose is what you choose to do with it. He nodded slowly, his admiration growing deeper. Madame Agnes watched them from across the table with a quiet smile, her heart full. For years she had prayed for this, a woman who would see her son beyond the glitter, beyond the empire. Later that night, as Amara prepared to leave, Williams walked her to the car. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the mansion's driveway. Amara, he said softly, I know today was a lot, but I need you to know I'm not the man Vanessa painted me to be. She nodded. I believe you. I saw your heart before I ever saw your wealth. For a moment, they just stood there, eyes locked, silence speaking louder than words. Then Williams smiled. Good night, Amara. She smiled back. Good night, Williams. He watched as the car drove away into the night, his reflection shimmering on the glass window. And somewhere in that quiet Lagos night, beneath the glow of the moon and the whisper of the palm trees, a feeling began to grow in both their hearts, gentle, unexpected, but undeniable. But far away, in a dark car parked across the street, Vanessa watched the mansion with burning eyes and clenched fists. She picked up her phone and whispered coldly, If I can't have him, no one will. The following morning began with laughter. Madame Agnes sat in the garden, trimming her roses, while Williams talked with Amara beside the fountain. For once, the mansion felt alive, the kind of peace that comes when hearts begin to heal. You know, Amara said, smiling shyly, I still can't believe I'm sitting here, talking to a billionaire like this. Yesterday, I was just helping a stranger. Williams chuckled softly. You're still helping a stranger? I'm still trying to figure out why your kindness feels like home. Amara looked at him, and for a moment, the noise of the world disappeared. But as soft as that morning seemed, darkness was already on its way. Later that day, Madame Agnes received an unexpected call. Her face grew pale as she listened. What did you say? She asked sharply. Williams looked up from across the room. Mother, what's wrong? It's your company, she said, standing. Someone just leaked your private business documents, online contracts, client lists, even your offshore account details. Williams shot to his feet. What? That's impossible. The butler rushed in, carrying a tablet. Sir, it's trending everywhere, number Williams scandal. He grabbed the tablet and stared in disbelief. Screenshots of false allegations, edited photos, and fake news headlines filled the screen. This is sabotage, he muttered. Amara's heart sank. Who would do something like this? Madame Agnes's eyes hardened. I think I know who. That evening, as the sky turned dark and thunder rolled in, Vanessa stood by a hotel balcony, a smug smile on her face. Her phone rang. Is it done? She asked. Yes, ma'am, a man replied. Every blog in Lagos has it. By morning the board will panic. She ended the call and laughed quietly to herself. Let's see if your precious beggar girl can save you now, Williams. Back at the mansion, chaos reigned. Williams's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters were camping at the gate. His company's board of directors demanded an emergency meeting. Amara sat quietly by the staircase, watching everything fall apart. Her mind raced. She had never seen this side of life before. The noise, the flashing cameras, the whispers. Then Madame Agnes approached her. My dear, don't be afraid. Storms reveal true people. Amara nodded, though fear still clouded her heart. Ma, what can I do? I feel so useless. Madame Agnes placed a hand on her shoulder. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stand beside someone when the world walks away. Hours later, Williams returned from his board meeting, his face drained and tired. They want me to step down temporarily, he said quietly. Amara's eyes widened. Step down? But you didn't do anything wrong. I know, he said, sitting heavily on the couch. But perception is everything in business. They think I need time to clear my name. Madame Agnes sighed deeply. My son, I've lived long enough to know when people want to bring you down, truth becomes a rumor, and rumors become truth. Williams clenched his fists. Whoever did this will regret it. Amara hesitated, then whispered, Sir, do you think it could be Vanessa? His jaw tightened. I don't want to believe she'd go that far, but maybe my kindness blinded me. Amara took a deep breath, her voice trembling. Then let me find out. Williams turned to her, surprised. You? Yes, she said firmly. I know someone who can trace calls and messages. He works at my aunt's shop, he fixes phones. If you give me one of the fake accounts posting these things, I can start there. Madame Agnes smiled faintly. Clever girl. Williams hesitated, then nodded. All right, but promise me you'll be careful. By nightfall, Amara met with her friend, Kenny, a street-smart technician in Yaba. He scrolled through his laptop, typing fast. These posts came from one main source, same IP, different fake names. Whoever it is, they're close to you, boss. Amara frowned. How close? Kenny turned the screen toward her. See this location? It's from Eco Pearl Towers. That's the luxury hotel Vanessa stays in. Amara's heart raced. I knew it. Wait, Kenny said, clicking another file. There's more. One of the messages came from inside your company's network. Someone on the inside is helping her. Amara's eyes widened. She's not alone. The next morning, Amara walked into the mansion, holding the evidence. Williams and Madame Agnes were already seated, both exhausted. Good morning, she said softly. Williams looked up. Did you find anything? Amara nodded and placed the printed documents on the table. It's Vanessa, and someone from your company's IT department. They created fake accounts using your server. Kenny traced everything. Madame Agnes's eyes narrowed. We must report this immediately. Williams stared at Amara in awe. You did this overnight. She shrugged, smiling slightly. You once told me not to lose my heart. I didn't. I just used it differently. He laughed, the first real laugh in 2 days. You're unbelievable. Hours later, police arrived at Vanessa's hotel. She tried to escape, but was caught. When confronted with the evidence, she broke down, crying. I just wanted him to regret leaving me, she confessed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Williams, who came to face her, looked at her with quiet sadness. Vanessa, revenge doesn't heal heartbreak, it only poisons it. She bowed her head in shame. I know. I've already lost everything. As they led her away, she whispered tearfully. She's lucky, Williams. That girl Amara, she's everything I pretended to be. Days later, the news cleared Williams of all accusations. His board reinstated him, and his reputation rose even higher than before, but not because of his wealth. Because of how he handled the storm with grace. Reporters nicknamed Amara the woman who saved a billionaire's empire. When Madame Agnes heard that, she laughed proudly. No, she didn't just save his empire, she saved his soul. That weekend, the mansion was filled with joy again. Madame Agnes called both of them to the living room. She was dressed in her finest lace, her walking stick glittering with gold. Today, she said with a wide smile, I will finish what I started. Williams frowned slightly. Mother? She stood, holding Amara's hand, and placed it in her son's. When I dressed as a beggar, I prayed God would show me a woman who would see beyond money. He answered me through you, Amara. You fed me when I was nothing. And now, I want you to feed my son's heart for the rest of his life. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Ma, I don't deserve. Madame Agnes interrupted gently. You do, my child. Kindness is never wasted, it always comes home. Williams knelt, pulling out a ring, the same one he'd held that first day. But this time, there was no shock, no disguise, no test, only truth. Amara, he said softly, you found me when I didn't even know I was searching. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Madame Agnes clapped her hands joyfully as the two embraced. 2 months later, their wedding was the talk of the city, but not for its wealth or glamour. It was for its story. A billionaire's mother had disguised herself as a beggar and found love in the most unexpected heart. At the reception, Amara took the microphone, her voice trembling as she faced the guests. 5 years ago, I was a girl with nothing, she said. I gave a hungry woman my lunch because I thought she needed it. I didn't know she was my destiny in disguise. Today, I learned something no one ever loses by being kind. The guests stood, clapping with tears in their eyes. Madame Agnes smiled proudly from her seat. That's my daughter, she whispered. And as the sun set behind the golden skyline of Lagos, the story of Amara and Williams became more than just a love story. It became a legend about kindness, faith, and the truth that wealth could never buy. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.